my name is Caroline, and I did my presentation on the ethics of animals in captivity. To start off, I'm going to talk about how the global environment is always changing. This is because humans are always changing the world around us, and in some ways it is helpful, while other times it's hurtful to the environment. It has been seen that relocated animals experience chronic stress due to the fact that the environment may not be the same in captivity as the wild environment that they are used to. Some people see that any type of captivity or environmental manipulation is wrong or morally unacceptable, but some of the animals that are kept in captivity would be long gone, extinct, if humans hadn't been involved. Zoos currently house roughly 1 in 7 threatened species in captivity. Zoos are also judged based on the success rates of their breeding programs. In most zoos, this is low. This means that zoos aren't being overly helpful in reproducing more of the animals placed in captivity. They don't have a super high rate introduction program as well. This means that zoos aren't releasing the numbers that they are expected of them. The main point of zoos initially was to nurse wounded animals back to top health, then release them back into the wild where they belong. They didn't really keep up these expectations. Since animals in captivity don't have the same space that they do in the wild, captive animals are losing natural skills that are needed for survival in the wild. Skills needed for survival in the wild are hunting. At the Woodland Park Zoo in Seattle, they had started a feeding program of feeding whole sheep and goats to big field captive animals, a whole rabbit and chicken to small field captive animals. This helped them in hunting skills needed for release, but the issue was that people didn't want to see the animals hunting. There are 2 types of animals that zoos hold in their captivity: threatened species and unthreatened species. A threatened animal would be like a leopard, while an unthreatened animal would be like a bobcat. Zoos did some research and found out that larger, more popular mammals don't bring money to the attraction. This means that animals such as the lion not being there doesn't mean that people won't show up. From this research, people start to wonder, are zoos really accomplishing what they need, or is there just another attraction that people want to see? The main reason that zoos started considering their release process is insufficient space, facility closure, pressure from animal ethics and welfare groups, and aid conservation. The main question that is asked when release programs are considered is, what are the duties of humans toward the animals that are in the line to be released? This means, how can humans best prepare the animals for release? Human contact really should be limited to release animals, and animals needed as much of the natural skills as possible. There are 2 main issues with release programs. Those are deteriorations or absence of certain skills and tendency to interact with humans and regard them as a reliable food source. The main issue that comes with a release program is the deterioration or absence of certain skills. This comes because a captive animal doesn't practice the skills such as hunting in zoos and captive places. The food is provided to them by humans. Most of the time, captive animals are fed on a schedule which excludes the use of foraging for food. Since they aren't looking for food or shelter or safety, these captive animals can lose their natural navigational skills needed to find food, water, and shelter. The final deterioration is the predator avoidance is unnecessary because they're put in their own captive space and don't need to protect themselves. Not only has their natural survival skills been deteriorating, but their physical appearance and their internal organs have been changing. One of the appearance that has been noted is that of neotomy in domestic animals. This means that animals aren't necessarily maturing like they once did. The features noted as baby or young animals are staying throughout the lifespan instead of maturing and becoming more prominent. Another issue is that in captivity, physical appearance can be bred to look certain ways while living in captivity. These may cause issues if the animal is then considered for a release program. This then causes severe consequences later on. This can finally lead to the loss of natural instinct. Another issue that has been presented in captivity is that the diet that is given to the animals in captivity. These diets are lacking in necessary vitamins and minerals needed for the healthy living situation. Recent studies started considering these lacks in nutrients and the nutritional needs with dietitian has come up with ways to give captive animals a healthier diet. When research is done, they've compared wild animal versus captive animals, and there were some substantial differences noted. One of the differences noted was the size of captive chimps versus the size of wild chimps. Captive chimps were bigger and grew faster than those in the wild. It was noted that lab animals mature much faster than that of average animals. The right nutrition is very important to a healthy life. Wild animals, though, may not get as a nutritious diet as a captive-fed diet. This can lead to issues later when they are released into the wild later on. Since animals in captivity get a healthier diet, they tend to live longer than they do in the wild. At the Honolulu Zoo, research has been done to try to keep the captive environment as close to the natural environment. So when the animals started into the release program, they have a higher level of success than those who aren't kept in a similar environment. There are many environmental stimuli in each enclosure, as well as research that enriches both the employees as well as the community. This leads to a healthier environment for the animals as well as educational for the community. A big question that comes up during talks of animal welfare and animal ethics is what defines good care. Zoos often describe good care as healthy, long-lived animals that reproduce, which to zoos this is a sufficient definition. Good health in captive animals often come because they can receive veterinary care and medicine, which most animals in the wild don't receive. The issue with most zoo employees is that that when animals introduced into a new habitat or enclosures, they often hurt themselves. When animals are kept in captive, humans take a full responsibility for their life. Part of that responsibility is accepting that death is a part of life. This means that if a captive animal is extremely hurt, it is a human's responsibility to do everything possible to fix this issue. Some zoos have even gone far enough as to take breeding into their own hands. The most successful breeding program is that of in vitro. People start to wonder if that is an ethical practice or if that is too much human involvement. Behavior is also an important factor in deciding the welfare of an animal. There hasn't been enough research completed to show what the normal wild behavior versus normal captive behavior is. The amount of stress in the wild versus the amount of stress in captivity has not been observed enough to really decide, is there a difference between wild versus captivity? Another reason that animals can show stress is if there isn't enough room in zoos for the animals to live accordingly. A lot of people say that animals that live in captivity live in luxury. This is another place that the ethics of animal treatment has a deep meaning and is difficult to define as strictly ethical or unethical. Zoos are supposed to be educational, not just entertainment of seeing animals that people wouldn't see on a normal basis. Zoo employers realize that they need to help increase the knowledge of the environment that they live in. Zoos such as the Brookfield Zoo in Chicago have created games that have been placed throughout the zoo that makes the zoo both entertaining, fun, and educational. The ethics of animal welfare don't just happen in the zoo, it happens everywhere around us as well, such as the surrounding community. The game that the Chicago Zoo came up with is called the Bog of Habits. It teaches 3 types of conservation, 2 types which are easy to incorporate into everyday life, and 1 that takes a lot of time and effort. Simple conservation and energy conservation are the everyday conservation types, and the time-intensive conservation is a commitment to more complex activities. Visitors leave knowing that they are making better choices and that they can positively impact the earth in their everyday life. Finally, cash is king. The amount of change that humanity goes through every day is now destroying most of the habitats where evolution can occur. Zoos and aquariums could do so much more if they could increase their price, but then they would lose customers. These customers would be like the low-income customers. The Lincoln Park Zoo has never charged an admission fee because they want the education to be available to all people. The ethics held in captivity isn't straightforward ethical or unethical. because there are so many aspects that make up ethics. Thank you.